Hi everybody, TJ Mack Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here, and in today's video I want to start off by thanking Andy from the channel D's Collection for the nice shout out he gave to my channel and some others. You know, I forgot to mention in my last video that Andy has this great idea for a contest that I haven't seen in the community before. He's profiling 12 community members during the month of November that are consistently supportive of his channel through watching and leaving comments. Then he plans to randomly select one of those channels and donate $100 to a charity of their choice. I have never met Andy, but when I watch his channel, I feel as if I know him. He is someone I can see myself sitting and talking about cards and life with, and I just enjoy the way he shows his collection in his videos. Not just the way he sets up his displays, but also how he talks about his collection. Now I'm going to leave a link to D's Collection down below, and if you haven't checked out his channel before, I just would highly recommend you give it a chance. He's, again, a very nice guy, and I just love the way he collects. I want to start today by showing off the September 3rd, 1979 newsstand issue of Sports Illustrated. I picked this up a couple months ago, and I chose to add this issue to my collection because I wanted a playing days item that truly encapsulates the essence of who Earl Campbell was. Now, I've shown his 1979 rookie card before on my channel, and it's a nice looking card, but to me it doesn't capture the true spirit of who Earl Campbell was as a running back. Now, due to a contract dispute with Topps, Earl didn't have any other playing days cards issued after his rookie year. And to me, kids were robbed of some potential photographs like the one on this cover of Sports Illustrated. Now here you have Campbell, who was the 1979 NFL MVP, and he was bow-legged, as you can see in the photo there, which is interesting. He just had such great speed. And one of the things I like about this photo is that he looks like he's charging like a rhino with all that padding covering his tree trunk-sized thighs. And there was no running back up to that time like him. And that's why I want an item like this displayed in my card room, because it's how I remember him. And sometimes cards don't quite capture that in a way a magazine cover does. Now we're going to take a closer look inside of this magazine. And this is actually a good shot to open right up with here. You have this cover. It says, or this advertisement piece, it says, "Meet our toughest teammates to date." And on here you have three Steeler legends in Roy Gerela. You have Mean Joe Green, Terry Bradshaw, and Franco Harris. And I'm going to show you their 1979 Topps cards to go with this. Not Gerela, but the other three. Here are the 79 cards of Green, Harris, and Bradshaw to go along with it. I just love doing this kind of stuff because it takes me back to being a kid again. And the Steelers were such a big deal, of course, in the mid to late 70s. And I'm sure they were on all kinds of advertising during the period. And I'm a big fan of the 79 Topps set. And eventually I'll profile these sets a little more closely. I don't have the complete sets, as you know. The way I collect in football and baseball for the most part is I just buy the cards that I connect with. And when I do my set profiles, I tend to show those cards and I talk about the season and the great players from that year. So now let's take a closer look at the three Steelers. You know, in the 1970s, you started seeing an increase in card photography that I would consider to be something they call lifestyle photography, where you would just take pictures of players just in their everyday settings. They're not posed, there's no prior planning, and there's just something to be said about that. It's the continuing changes in photography that impacted cards, and that in itself is an interesting video, but I just want to have you maybe appreciate these types of cards a little bit more than maybe you would before, is that there are changes in just how photography was done. And it wasn't just in football, you'd see it on all of the other sports as well. Where more in the 60s, you were getting a lot of like stylized photos, and same with obviously the 50s and before, and pose photos versus these more natural lifestyle photography images that you're seeing here. Now, this was a very interesting article, It spoke about what football would be like in the year 2000. And remember, this was issued back in 1979. And I'm just going to share with you, for the fun of it, a few predictions that I thought were pretty accurate and a few that were not so much. Now, Raiders coach Tom Flores said, everything will become more specialized. On defense, you'll get pass rushers and run defenders, first down and third down defensive ends, and then you'll see relief quarterbacks as well. Now, the first 2 points I think are pretty accurate. We haven't really seen relief quarterbacks in the modern day NFL, but I think he's spot on with his first points. And then for a pretty off-the-wall one, inventor Byron Donzis said there will be female quarterbacks. Well, of course, we know that hasn't happened yet to date. And Miami Dolphins coach Don Shula talked about legalized gambling on football. And it was mentioned that you'll be able to bet on individual players and plays. Now, granted, this didn't happen right in 2000, but he had the foresight to see a bigger role for gambling in football that we're seeing today. Now, one coach predicted that there will not be any more draft busts due to sophisticated computers being able to ensure that the right player is drafted. Well, we know that's not true. So I thought these were fun. There were many more, but that's just one of the fun things about going back and reading articles, is you can capture these types of things. Now, here are a couple very cool photos. I told a story about a year or so ago about Oilers quarterback Dan Pastorini breaking 3 ribs in a 1978 game versus the Steelers. Now, Pastorini was hospitalized when 2 men entered his room with a paper bag and a baseball bat. Now, Pastorini thought he was being robbed, but it turned out the men had a new invention they wanted to show him. Now, inside the bag was a flak jacket that would absorb the blow of a hit, keeping the wearer safe. Now, the man up top here is Byron Donzis, and he was the one that was making the crazy predictions that I was just telling you about. And he was an inventor, and he's the one that created this flak jacket, and he was with the other man who proceeded to whack Donzis after he put the jacket on 3 times with a baseball bat. And remarkably, Donzis wasn't injured. So Pastorini was so impressed with what he saw, he returned to action a few weeks later wearing the flak jacket, and this is just a picture of what it looks like. And then I also included a card of Pastorini here from 1975, and then there's a 75 Alvin Bethea, and you can see Bethea right here. He was wearing a lightweight inflated padding as well, similar to what Pastorini's wearing, but it's obviously, you can see it just a little more all-encompassing on his shoulders there and whatnot. Now, the different items I showed you today are all pretty great, but you know the best thing about this magazine that I didn't even realize until I got it was that this issue was out the week I started kindergarten. You know, they say that memories are reflections of what used to be, and when I saw this article in the Reds, it made me think of the 1979 season and the start of my enjoyment of baseball. Now, here you have my binder with my 1979 top set. We're going to just take a quick peek inside. I'll pop the binder here. And one of the things I'm going to tell you here is that what I did differently for my 1979 Topps baseball and my 1980 set is that I sorted both of them in team order by how the teams finished that year. I haven't done that with any of my other sets. And I believe the first packs that I ever opened were 1980 Topps, but I did have some 1979 Topps cards in my collection that were likely given to me by my brother. You know, there's something pleasing to the eye seeing all the players lined up in binder pages wearing the same uniform. It takes me back to my childhood when I would remember rubber banding the cards and then storing them in one of those Topps Super Sports lockers. And it's an example of what one would look like. And it had the very thin plastic trays inside, and you can put each team in there. And then it would also have the stickers that you would put on the inside panels with the team name on it. And I went to Beach Avenue Elementary School when I was in kindergarten through 6th grade. And they used to have these, what they call hobby days, where you'd bring in something that you'd enjoy doing to display in the school's cafeteria. And I remember there were these long wooden tables with circular stools attached to them. And you'd see lined up all the different hobbies that students had, from stamps to dolls, some coin collections, different crafts. And then there would be some that would bring in their baseball and football cards. And I would have my sports locker open, and then in front of them, I would spread a grouping of cards on the table. Now, I remember one year I won a prize ribbon. I don't remember exactly what it was for, but I was so excited to show my mom. And I don't think they do things like that anymore. Maybe they do show and tell, but I don't remember like these small hobby type shows that they would do in school. At least where my kids go to school, they don't do that. Now, in case you're wondering, the article was pretty interesting as it talked about how the Reds continued to win in spite of no longer being the big red machine. In fact, the title of the article states, "Say hi to the little red machine." Now, gone were Pete Rose, who went to the Phillies. You can see him here in his 1979 Topps Burger King card. And then you had Tony Perez, who went to the Expos, I believe a couple years earlier. But the Reds still pressed on. You still had some great players on those teams at the time. You had Tom Seaver, and of course Johnny Bench, who wasn't quite in his prime anymore, but he still, I believe, hit 22 home runs and drove in 80 RBIs that year. And then Joe Morgan didn't have his best year in 79, but hey, he was still Joe Morgan. And their best player at that time was probably George Foster. You can see right here. He batted .302 in 1979 with 30 home runs and 98 RBIs. The Reds did manage to take the West Division with 90 wins that year, only to lose to the eventual champion Pirates in the NLCS. I chose to share these nostalgic memories because I think they bring us closer as a community. A stroll down memory lane for me is pretty good medicine, just like your mom's favorite dish, rich and savory, and always making you feel better. This is why I collect tiny pieces of cardboard that have no purpose other than to bring me joy. These are the talismans of my youth, the magical objects that remind me I came from the kid that owned them way back then. Sure, they're valuable, and I can sell them to do more important things, but sometimes you can't put a price on your past. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll talk again soon.